Welcome back, my rogues. Today's question is Doctor's Therapist of Reddit. Do you have any "no, that's not normal" stories? If so, what abnormal habit oddity did the patient have thinking it was normal? Hope you enjoy, and check me out on Instagram. I had a patient with a cut in his mouth casually say, "You know when you're chewing on some glass?" And I had to stop him and ask for clarification. Apparently after he finished a bottle of beer he would just bite into it. He said he liked the feeling of chewing on the glass. Nice guy though. To address a request for more context. I was a paramedic student doing a clinical rotation in the ER. Guy comes in complaining of bleeding more than usual. I don't know if it was a Pico thing, but he did admit to frequent and recent prior meth use. I'm the patient. All my life I thought I had really good hearing and could hear the electricity in the walls. Well, I stated hearing and seeing other shit too, and I'm apparently likely schizoaffective according to my psychiatrist. I'm the patient, but I used to think we sucked at walking as a society. Seems like everyone was walking into each other and not paying attention. Nope. Turns out I was losing my peripheral vision and it was just me running into people like a jackass. Apparently, having constant upper back pain and muscle tightness is not normal. Before the pain got unbearable, I thought that my family was just predisposed to having back pain. My dad, grandmother, and various other relatives have similar issues. Then I saw a doctor and was told that apparently I had severely injured my back very early in life, which made my muscles spasm so hard that they could not loosen back up without medical intervention. I no longer have such bad upper back pain, and on the upside, my neck shoulder muscles are swole as all hell now. I can lock my jaw open in a weird dislocation type of way. It doesn't hurt or anything. During a cleaning at the dentist I locked it open so it would be easier for the both of us. My dentist had a total freak out and pulled like 3 other people into the room to show them. I always thought everyone could do it, but I guess not. I'm not a doctor or a therapist, but I had a moment like this about my own life. I didn't know I was allergic to kiwis until I was about 17. I was having a conversation with someone and brought up the fact that kiwis make your throat close a little when you eat them, and they looked at me like I was crazy. I had to ask a few more people before believing that I was actually allergic. I have scores of those stories. Maybe thousands. Every day I wind up slowly shaking my head and gently saying, "Nope, not normal." Most of the time it's silly, or boring, or common. There are loads of misconceptions. Most anti-vaxxers, I found, have no idea how vaccines really work, much less basic understanding of human biology. This despite the fact that they think they are smarter than the entirety of the CDC and WHO. Which is interesting. I digress. My favorite that comes to mind was when I was counseling a young couple about their infertility. As it turned out, the man was masturbating several times a day, even at the woman's most fertile time of the month, and they were both adamant that they wanted to have a child. She was sullen and angry for the whole appointment, and said, "He wakes up like 3 times a night to jack off." He turned to her and said, "Everybody does." This was in addition to maybe 5 to 9 times a day his admission. I told him that he simply had to know that sperm are lost with every ejaculate, and can only be made at a certain rate, so his count per ejaculate was absolutely low. He was furious that I even suggest he avoid masturbating for a few days a month. I gave him a calendar and have intercourse with his wife. He wanted her tested, to see what's really wrong here. I advised that he give the masturbating a rest first. She left him less than a year later. When I heard that I smiled and remember thinking, good for her, sometimes you just got to try again. Patient here, thought it was normal to smell numbers and have them appear as different colors. Edit, it's called synesthesia. I'm not 100 sure, but I think it's abnormal neural crossings that mix some senses with others, i.e. sight and smell. Not a doctor or a patient. I was like 8 and talking to a friend about how I didn't want to get married if it just meant being unhappy and being mean to your kids. My friend asked me what I was talking about. I thought that unhappy marriages and child abuse was normal. Not a doctor, but one of my classmates in college casually let this out in a discussion that she didn't get glasses. For years she thought everyone has blurry vision and it was normal. I was the patient in my story. My dad has been in jail for a while, and when he came out he was super fit while my mum was still overweight. He was trying to get back into the family, and I told my college counselor I don't understand why he's trying. I'm now in college so he doesn't need to care about me, and he's too good looking for my mum now. Apparently that conversation showed a severe lack of empathy, relationship capability, and I was suggested to see a therapist. I was the patient in this. I have gotten stung an abnormally large amount of times from bees as kids. Every time the spot would swell up and double the size, i.e. if I got stung on my hand, my whole hand would double in size. It would be red and hurt for like a week and then become super itchy for another week in total, lasting about 2 weeks. I thought this was normal and what happened when everyone got stung. Even when I went to see an allergist and they told me I was allergic, I still thought it was normal for bee stings to be like that. It wasn't until my friend told me that when she gets stung it looks like a mosquito bite and goes away in 2 days that I realized my reactions are a little extreme. Patient here. I was very young when I had my first period. Single digits. They were okay till I hit 10 and had 100 days period. That was super heavy, like 46 pads an hour. Went to the gyna and was told it was normal for women to have this happen. 20 years later still getting the 100 days periods, I find out it's PCOS with a dab of endo. Didn't know being tired a lot and having no energy while also feeling pretty much no joy and having no goals, dreams, etc. Wasn't normal. Was for me like that most years in school and still now at university, but I just recently found out I might be struggling with from not a native speaker and I never know which one is the correct one in this context, so he'll just use both. Depression. I actually found out by accident. Couldn't sleep one night, so I started watching YouTube and came across a video 10 things of depression or something like that. Scored 10/10 and now I'm just waiting for Corona to pass so I can go see a therapist. Apparently getting hives when you're cold, and almost going into anaphylactic shock isn't normal. Cold urticaria in Canada is a fucking bummer. If you have this condition like I do, join the subreddit. They can help you. Do research line I did to see if you have the severe or common type. Figure out who else in your family shows signs and symptoms. It's hereditary in the common version, but sometimes the severe one manifests itself. Not the doctor, but after I had a UTI I was given antibiotics and was complaining to my housemate who was a med student how awful they made me feel and I couldn't wait to be off them. She told me antibiotics are supposed to make you feel better and from what I described I must be allergic to them. I was really surprised because I thought allergies meant you broke out in hives or something like that. Visibly I was fine. I just had this feeling like my skin was rotting off, even though my skin looked normal. A few years later I was accidentally given the antibiotic I was supposed to be allergic to and had no reaction, so I'm not sure what happened there. My half-siblings both have porphyria, so I wonder if it's related somehow. I thought it was normal to be able to push my thumbs out of the sockets. Might not be correct wording, but that's the gist of it. A girl I worked with once told no less than 8 people that she likes the burning sensation she got after having sex with her boyfriend. Everyone instantly cringed. Took me until 16 to finally realize having a swollen and tangled vas efferens on my left testicle wasn't normal. It's called varicocele and it affects about 15 of males. It's caused by poor blood flow, and his only excess blood in the veins leading up to it. Luckily the only downsides are a bit of an ache and a 15 smaller left testy. Also patient, not doctor. Back in high school I used to sleep about 1,215 hours per week. I would end up sleeping anywhere between 3 hours a night. On average, my parents were against sleep aids, so my doctor could only recommend meditation. I didn't even realize at the time that it was a problem because I was fully awake despite the lack of sleep. Flash forward to today, I manage my way around insomnia with blackout curtains, a noise machine, a very cold room, thick comforters, a sleeping mask, and a body pillow. Without any one of these, I still struggle significantly to sleep, but now I average 79 hours per night. I'm the patient, but whatever, it seems like that's what we're doing here anyway. I always thought caffeine giving you energy making it hard to sleep was a myth. I had heard the same about sugar and chocolate growing up, actually myths, and my mum had a lot of those old wives' tales like carrots being good for your eyes, so I just figured it was one of those imperceptible effects where you needed like 10 coffees or a nutritional deficiency to notice. In fact, I found that drinking a can of Coke before bed helped me sleep. A few of my cousins said similar things. Eventually I met someone who would be up all night if she drank a strong tea after 6 p.m. Caffeine had a crazy effect on her, so I asked some of my other friends and a lot of them had similar experiences, though not quite to that extent. Anyway, it turns out most of my family, including me, has ADHD and caffeine just acts like mild Adderall. Obligatory, not a doctor, but asked my organ about other alternatives for cramps and bleeding off my cycle. When asked to describe said cramps, she went wide-eyed and said, "That's not cramps." Turned out I had multiple ovarian cysts, and one had ruptured and was causing terrible pain and bleeding. Yet another patient chime in here. When I was in 7th grade, I got my first period, Within about 10 minutes I had bled through all my clothes and was smearing blood on the chair. Absolutely mortified, I did my best to hide it until my sister picked me up after school. I had been given a small book to read, a new IWASNT dying, so let her know, and she provided me with, at the time, a very insufficient amount of supplies. I never got a parental talk, or any health ed that addressed it, so I thought I was a total wuss. Others were going to school and being normal on their periods, and I couldn't even quite walk some days without some OTC edge-cutting goodness. The whole thing just completely wiped me out. They would come random times, and bleed random amounts for random intervals. I was told I needed to get better at tracking and stop bleeding on things. Please note that on my heavy couple days, which could come at any time, I would completely bleed through a 10-hour pad and be getting blood seeping into my jeans within 45 minutes. Classes in high school and college are both slightly longer than that. I am told by my small town doctor to wear 2 pads stacked under depends diapers, if I'm worried, and that some people bleed a lot. I stop asking for help and get very good at laundry. Note that this whole time I'm anemic, but some women just are, and I'm a vegetarian, so nothing to do here. I am also getting faint spells, unable to stay awake some days, mood swings, just all the greatest hits of things small town doctors agree sound icky, but don't look into. I try to take a PE class required in college and am told to sit in the corner because just walking at 2 miles per hour on the treadmill spikes my heart rate up higher than was supposed to allow it to get in. Cardio 1. I am asked to go see a doctor, as the instructor reported my issues to health services when I nearly faint in class warm-up. On it goes, getting better and worse. For years, I get over it and admire how so many people have it so together in life. It's not until I'm in grad school that I start bleeding literally every day. Not the full flow, but kinda the amount that can be caught in a 10-hour pad or 2 a day. Annoying. I try to deal. I ask my primary doctor for birth control because I have learned that can even things out for some people. I take 2 oral brands, both religiously, for 2 months each. There is no effect with either. Then my organs start not being happy. I drop out of grad school at about my second well. We have no idea. Have a nice life or visit for unexplained symptoms. Eventually they figure a few things out, one being that my bone marrow is failing to produce not only enough red blood cells, but that the ones I have are too small. They can't actually carry the oxygen. I can breathe as much as I want. A bunch of these suckers just going around in circles without delivering shit. Freeloaders. Also, while I'm in decent shape in a lot of ways, that gallbladder's a lost cause and we'll be taking that out. I go from her to the critical decisions unit and stay there, with checks every 15 minutes, for over 3 weeks, while they get me into a shape where I can have the surgery. Many IV bags are drained at the altar of my surviving a basic outpatient surgery. I'm given what I think are called the good drugs. I don't remember the names of them. I tuned it out because I was too busy beaming at the nice nurse and thinking about how great everything is and how nice it was they had apple juice and how great apples are in general. I eventually have the procedure. I recover. I go home. The doctors continue to look at why my body seems like it's overtaxed, when it's not doing anything special. Iron supplements don't seem to help enough, and my iron stays low and my blood count refuses to go into the normal range. They send me to a hematologist as part of my release, and he is a great guy. Gives me IVs that I'm terrified of but that make me feel great for weeks. I have so much energy, and he asks me during the screenings how my period is, and I tell him normal, since it had returned to normal form. But on the 3rd visit with he starts really grilling me about it. Whatever, I give him the TMI of exactly how much blood and what kind of solids go where, when and why during the woman's period. His eyes slowly start getting wider and wider until I realize that something I said was very wrong. He lets me know that this is not normal. His version of the doctor trying to give bad news calmly goes way too far into perky mode. Didn't I know there was an Obgyn department in the same hospital group and he was just gonna call over there really fast and ask the couple questions. I signed that release form with the front, right? Just checking. What a coincidence. Ultrasound has an APPT in 2 days. So does some fancy specialist. No babies allowed OBGYN. He is creepy, dead-eyed smiling this whole time, but he makes sure to tell me to never answer normal again on a medical screening, for any reason, ever. Turns out that my body is slightly whack. Most people with periods have true cycles. They build up a little mass in the uterus, then ovulated it, then shed it, rest and then repeat. I, however, may make that builded up hormone the whole time. Every week is add to the pile week, and there is no break. Spitting out those cells is 247,365. Even with the heavy flow, lots of lining built up over the years. That led to my clots longer than my thumb coming out, tissue WASNT broken down before it was released. It eventually led to the everyday leaking that happened right before my total breakdown. It led to my gnarly cramps as my body tried to build hold, and shed all at the same time. Nowadays I get a nice strong shot in my arm on a regular basis, and have normal 30-day periods with light spotting. Cramps are bearable, headaches mostly have to with the crap I eat and not hormones. I can go outside in a cold breeze and not lose feelings in my extremities. I can stand up really fast, I can walk for multiple minutes in a row without any feeling of lightheadedness. I still keep those overnight pads, I don't need any more random places. Because old habits die hard. TL. Doctor bled internally for a few years. Bled externally for a bit. Raised being told constantly that it was normal and to deal with it better. That no one else complained like I did. Bled on everything I love. Bled on most things that I didn't favor. Missed a shit ton of things so I wouldn't bleed all over the place in public areas. Let some organs almost give out on me. Lost a tiny gland no one cares about anyways. Accrued tens of thousands in medical debt. Eventually got told at age 25 that blood loss is not normal. Doctor who broke this to me took a few minutes to process that I really thought half the world bled like that. I have loose shoulders. I can pop them in and out of their sockets with no effort, sometimes it's more effort to keep them popped in. I found out this wasn't normal in my high school health class when we were learning the dangers of drinking and using drunk goggles to simulate how alcohol affects your vision. We all got handcuffed after and I was able to slip my arms in front of me with no issue. Apparently it wasn't normal to try to predict future social encounters. I would try and think about what topics could come up, what people I might interact with, etc. From there I would make an elaborate web of possibilities, mainly to cover my backside and try to avoid any of the possible scenarios that would be embarrassing. Example, if I say it to Kate, she might say B, but what if she misunderstands what I said by A? Then she would say C, and I could say D in order to fix the misunderstanding. If I say D and Kate is still upset angry, I could say E to try and patch things up. But also, what if Kate doesn't say B? What if she says F instead? And I say G and this causes a misunderstanding, to which I say H to fix it. And if H doesn't work, then what can I say to make amends? I spent hours every single day doing this. Someone says I was daydreaming these scenarios. I'd actually talk out loud whatever was being said in the scenario. Turns out it was severe social anxiety. Edit just to clarify a little more depth. I didn't know people just fell asleep. It's always been a struggle for me. Like it takes me 3 hours to sleep even with sleep aids. I wake up 5 times a night, every night, and then struggle to sleep again. Told my psychiatrist and turns out I have insomnia and restless leg syndrome. Was kinda surprised about the legs but I always move them and the sleep study I took showed almost constant leg movement. I didn't realize it wasn't normal for people's muscles to give out on them. Like sometimes if I'm walking my legs will collapse on me. Turns out it's called cataplexy and it's a symptom of narcolepsy. Edit just wanted to say if you're experiencing this it does not necessarily mean you could have narcolepsy. I went to the doctor for excessive sleeping and just happened to found out this was part of it. Had no clue before. It wasn't something everyone experienced. However, if you're excessively sleeping and experiencing cataplexy, please go see a sleep specialist. Not a doctor, and a doctor didn't help me find this out. But I casually mentioned how eggplants, raw mushrooms and walnuts make mouths itchy. My husband stared at me waiting for me to say more. So note, not everyone feels that. I've got mild food allergies, LMAO. I'm a midwife in the UK. I was inducing a woman and I had to put some medication in the woman's vagina. She gave a history of never having had a smear test, and was in her 30s. So when I felt a lump on her cervix, I was concerned. I explained to her what I had found and that I thought we needed to get a doctor to check her out, and make a plan for a full assessment once she had given birth. At this point her husband piped up. "Oh, you mean the lump on the left side, at about the 10 o'clock position? Yeah, that's been there for over a year." It turns out that he had casually been checking out her cervix every time he fingered her, and had been checking her cervix regularly throughout the pregnancy. I advised him to stop doing that. I was the patient, and apparently severely emotionally abused by about everyone I encountered, from friends to teachers, to parents to SOs in my childhood up to my early 20s. Like I thought people apologizing making up was just a thing done in kids shows. And that the reality is if you make any mistake you deserve the indefinite punishment from it. Or a single child's parents playing with him was a thing, again, in TV shows. Because TV shows are fake, so absolutely nothing of what they show is a reflection of reality. Therefore any abuse I endured was normal and just how life is. I was too the patient in my story. I don't really like doctors, so I don't go to see them often. A few years ago I went to see one a few days before leaving for college. I told him I was tired of constantly having cuts around my mouth. It turned out I was suffering with PTSD, and those cuts in my mouth were consequences of PTSD. The doctor sent me see a dentist, and it turned out that a great part of my teeth were really damaged due to teeth grinding caused by my PTSD. My health was globally SHT because of PTSD. Today feel way better, no more cuts in my mouth, but I still suffer from PTSD and teeth grinding. It's getting better with the years. I have to remind teenagers way too often that they need to sleep, eat, and drink water. Some of these kids are out here thinking it's normal to drink nothing but half a can of Mountain Dew every day and then wonder why they feel sick and tired all the time. Buddy, you're not depressed. You just get 2 hours of sleep every night. My GF once accused me of setting a doubt trap for her while I was asleep. When told that's not even remotely possible on any account, she responded by asking the lamp, whom she called Supreme Bring, if I was a fucking liar or not. Bipolar with schizoaffective and BPD are a tough mix. 7 meds later and she is pretty stable. Anytime we don't know something I ask her to ask the lamp. He apparently knows all. My therapist asked me to close my eyes and envision myself in a safe place. When she asked me where I was, I told her I was sitting on my couch in my living room. When she asked why that was my safe place, I told her it was because I lived in a multi-story apartment with barred windows, and my living room couch had a full view of all of the exits within my apartment. That was her first indicator that I was suffering from PTSD. My ex-girlfriend back in college was performing oral on me, and when she went down to service my balls, she stopped and was like, "Hey, where are your balls?" I was just like, "Oh yeah, they do that sometimes when my sack tightens," and popped them back down into place from where they were hiding above the pubic bone. The face she made was one of abject horror mixed with confusion, with just a dash of amusement thrown in. That face was my first clue that it wasn't as normal as I thought. Turns out, according to my doctor, it's not really a health problem or anything. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just what we in the medical field call really weird. So yeah, turns out that not a lot of guys have what I like to call wandering balls. A decent number of guys can push them up there on purpose, but not a lot of them just kinda migrate there on their own. During my internship, we had a patient in the emergency room who thought everyone carries some sort of hemorrhoids with them. I thought it was a language barrier, but my colleague told me this man thought it was normal until it started to hurt when he walked. Not only did he think hemorrhoids are normal, he thought keeping his asshole clean is not important either. Upon examination, he had grade 4 hemorrhoids with some infection. Biggest hemorrhoids I seen this far. We took him to surgery next day. I told the nurse to please kindly explain to him and his family everything about hemorrhoids and hygiene. This is one of my top 10. Oh hell no. I am the patient in this one. I was in physical therapy, was in an accident, had to relearn how to walk as one leg developed atrophy. I was moving my good foot up and down and the therapist was watching my foot as when I rotated my foot up, my toes bent down, and when rotated down my toes bent up. She asked me to try and move my toes the same direction as my foot and I couldn't do it. And got her, oh, this isn't right. She tried to fix it in PT but it never took. I saw a therapist because I have a huge lack of empathetic emotions and will literally not give a fuck about someone's feelings when I say or do something, and almost all emotional situations don't affect me. At one point I realized this probably wasn't normal behavior, so I saw a therapist. Turns out I'm completely fine emotionally. I'm just a massive narcissist with an ego and a lack of empathy. I'm working on it. Every man has sexual dreams 4 or 5 times a week, mostly with women, but with other men and animals too. I see static all the time, also called visual snow. People always thought I was crazy when I asked if they saw the world in flashing pixels too. People I've asked see solid colors instead of grainy images. It's like seeing the world but with a layer of TV static on everything. I'm a doctor. A guy came in complaining about constipation and back pain. His main complaint was constipation, as his back has been hurting for years but it's gotten so bad he can't get out of bed anymore and seldom eats. I get a bad feeling and order up some lab work. It comes back and it's like good with a few hiccups but nothing unusual for a man in his age who hasn't been to a checkup in year. Bad feeling persists and I order a full body scan on him despite having no actual evidence of anything. And it's cancer. Every single bone in his spine was full of tumors. I'm the patient, and for the first 15 years of my life I thought it was normal to hear people speaking but not understand a single thing they were saying, and I thought it was normal to ask people to repeat themselves 7 times before just giving up and pretending I heard, and I thought it was normal to be able to bluff my way through every conversation. It wasn't until I was diagnosed With mild moderate hearing loss at 15 years old and given hearing aids that I realized I was just deaf all along lol. I was in therapy for severe and constant nightmares. I had one where I had invisible braces on and tore some of my teeth out trying to remove them. Then I went on a family trip to Guatemala and went to a doctor down there to get it fixed. When he put me under I died for a second and came back. I wanted to talk about dying in dreams but she started going down the tearing my teeth out to get the braces off. I said that was awful yes but I used to tear out my stitches when I had surgeries so that I isn't that bad. And she just you did what I knew tearing out stitches is bad but I didn't think it was not normal. How do you keep them in? They are so uncomfortable. I started tearing some out in my sleep once and woke up with blood everywhere so I'd rather get rid of them before that happens. By the way my doctor and mum decided that cauterizing incisions would be better since I can't remove that. And cauterizing is so much worse. Yeah, I didn't realize you could see an entire tree and leaves at the same time. Read an article some time back about how some couple in China were trying to have a baby and finally went to the doctor when they were unable to conceive. The girl described the sex as very painful and the doctor was really very confused. Later found out they were having anal sex and had no idea it was the wrong hole. Not a doctor. I thought it was normal that my vision blacked out for about 15 seconds after standing up too quickly. I think I was around 14 and this started when I was around 12. I mentioned it to my doc casually when I gone to get my fever checked out like it takes longer for me to see when I get up now and she was wait a sec what? And immediately proceeded to treat my anemia. I'd stand up and blink until the darkness dissipated like it was nothing LMAO. Or just blindly walk if I had to get somewhere quickly, and wait for my vision to clear on the way.
Hope you liked this video. Stay frosty my rebels.